There he is. Whee! Dog's taking a piss. It's been a bit of in it.
I was born October 1940, so consequently I didn't have to go. So I started thinking, what am I missing? You know, it's typical. He said, fill this form in just to see if you could join the army, you know. Well, I only put my name on with 1 or 2 spelling mistakes, you know what I mean? He said, you could join the Guards. Anyway, I went home and my father, who I didn't get on with really, he said, what you going to do with yourself? Where you been today? I said, recruiting office. He said, you won't get in the army.
blade, or stock length blade. It's actually got the sharp edge on the flat side, the curve is on the top. They're dead easy to sharpen. You can just literally just do that on either side and you're done. So
done that side, so you do the other side. Can you see it's lifted the nap up? So there's a slight roll over there.
We'll start off with probably the most common level that people today. What is chrome? So chrome is a relatively new thing. It's leather, it's gorgeous.
You know the old adage, there's nothing worse than a blunt knife. There's nothing worse.
And I thought I'd tell you about something that happened to me recently, but there is a saying that you face adversity, that you rise to the challenge. Your skills rise to the challenge. And I don't think this is true. What actually happens is your skill level descends to your level of experience. You fall backwards, you don't rise up, you go back. And that's why we train, to raise our level of experience. And that was very much in my mind recently. I was in Spain when the power went off. In fact, I'd been dropped by a ship to catch a plane in a small airport in Spain. And I went to the airport, and I'd been lecturing. I had a black tie and a laptop and all that sort of clobber with me, so none of my outdoor gear. And I got dropped at the airport, and I knew that there was the potential for a problem, but everything looked good. Everything was on the board, the flight's on time. And then I checked my phone, and I looked at the flight tracker app, and I could see the flight. It's just a joy. I like to carve things and give them away. So yeah, it's difficult. You like whittling? You do. Good for you. It's a good thing. Lovely. It's been really lovely to talk to you. And it's great to see so many familiar faces.